Anthony, California, wants to talk to us about morals. So welcome, Anthony. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing well, Matt. Thank you for giving me a buzz. I'll just, in the essence of time, get right into the elevator speech.
Well, start the clock then.
So I believe that there are kind of three different categories of what you could call ethics or morals. So there's laws which are well defined by like a government, and have consequences for infidelity to those laws. There are ethics, which are a little bit less defined and kind of are in the shape around, a good example that I could give for ethics, I guess, is like corporate CSR. I'm sure, like social responsibility. I'm sure you're familiar with that. And then I believe that morals are, there is an absolute nature to morals that is indicative of having a moral compass and that's what I wanted to ask you guys. Where do you believe that the origination of morals came from?
So I don't believe that morals exist. I'm not a moral realist. I don't believe that there's an absolute foundation for morality. I think that for me, morality, we begin by defining it as, oh, we're going to care about well-being. And then there are non-subjective assessments we can make with respect to it. If you think there's an absolute moral nature answer out there, how do you demonstrate what it is and that it's the right one?
So I think that to answer your question, you could demonstrate that by saying, okay, like take a utilitarian approach to it. What morals are just straight up bad for society? Killing one another is not prosperous to the human race, of course. Stealing from one another is, that is not prosperous to like agriculture or.
Okay, Anthony, I'm going to interrupt. So it seems to me that what you're saying and your utilitarian approach is very, very similar to my own. But when you say, is it bad for us? That's a bit of a cheat, because saying something is moral or immoral based on whether or not it's bad for us when you haven't defined what is or isn't bad for us. And so you went to something like, oh, killing is right. Is killing always immoral? Are there no circumstances under which killing is morally justified?
No.
There are no circumstances under which it's morally justified to kill someone?
I'm sorry. I think that was a double negative. I misinterpreted your question. There definitely are.
Yeah.
Okay. So then when you say killing is immoral, that's a mistake, because sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't, dependent upon the situation, correct?
Correct. I'm assuming without any, prior provocation or
provocation. Yeah.
So, but what I asked was, if there's an absolute moral position, how do you tell what it is, and how do you show that it is the correct one? Because so far you're pointing to practical utilitarian views of what is better or worse for society, and that's my view. Because my view is that morality is about well-being, and that you begin with very simple foundations, and once you accept that, then you can evaluate a situation and the consequences of that situation with respect to the goal. But none of that is anything at all like an absolute moral view from a God with a lawgiver.
Right. And so I guess exactly, that's my point, is I am in no sovereign position to make judgments about what's absolute. I am just simply stating examples in which I believe what I determine to be absolute morals, which again isn't necessarily correct, because I'm just a human and I've made tons of mistakes as well. So I'm not saying that I haven't necessarily I haven't necessarily obeyed by my own set of morality in the sense of right and wrong.
Hang on. Now I'm confused, Anthony, because you just used the phrase my own sense of right and wrong. Is your sense of right and wrong correct? Is it the absolute one? So
No,
you have a sense of right and wrong, and it's not the absolute one. How do you know that yours isn't absolutely correct? If you think there is one that's absolutely correct, how do you know?
mine is subjective, and like I said, I've made mistakes, and so
No. So let me clear this up, because somebody in chat missed this as well. Subjective and objective are different from absolute or not. Your claim is that there's an absolute objective external standard for morality. That this is something given by God, right?
Is that your claim, Anthony? I wasn't sure that was. Is that your claim, that there's an absolute morality?
Yes.
Based on what?
Well, based on the utilitarian, with what Matt was saying, with respect to what the goal.
But that's not absolute.
Anthony, no.
You missed it. That's not absolute.
Yeah. So your position was that there was an absolute objective moral standard, and that standard is God. And now, when asked about it, you describe a utilitarian standard where objective assessments can be made, but utilitarianism as the foundation, or pragmatism as a foundation, or well-being as a foundation, that foundation is ultimately subjective. It's only the assessments that are objective, and neither of them are absolute, because you've already acknowledged that it's situational. So if you and I are in agreement that it's situational and not absolute, and that it is a subjective foundation, well-being, that you can make an objective assessment from, then you have agreed with the exact opposite of your claim, that it is an absolute objective foundation from a God.
Well, so I think that's where society kind of, because a lot of our own subjective sense of right and wrong is derived from our experiences, right, in our society. I think 1 Corinthians 15:33 says that bad company corrupts good morals. And so basically,
Anthony, you're no longer talking about the same thing, and you're not answering the questions. You were arguing for an absolute objective moral standard. You were arguing for God being the absolute objective moral standard. And then you acknowledge that your view of it is that it is not in fact absolute, but situational, and that it is not in fact objective, but subjective in its foundation, and that foundation can be well-being or some other utilitarian thing. So you both argued for and against God. And when I pointed that out, you say, well, this is because society has a subjective blah, blah, blah. I think you need to spend some more time thinking about this. You might want to go listen to my lecture on the superior secular morality. I'm going to move on to try to get another caller, because we're already past time. And
I understand.
We're no longer talking about the same thing.
Okay, I'm sorry for misinterpreting, and we'll do.
Call back some other time.